everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order. Thank you for joining us during our weekly virtual MLS breakfast meetings. My name is Sharon Wang, and I am with Remax Advanced Realty from Temple City. A few housekeeping tips. Our participants will be muted, and should you have a question or a comment, please enter it into the chat box in the Zoom, and the host will read it during the Q&A portion of the meeting. Please remember to join us weekly as we will have our virtual MLS breakfast meetings every Thursday at 9 a.m. As always, this meeting is being recorded and will be available online on our YouTube channel, West San Gabriel Valley Realtors. A little about me, my name is Sharon Wang, and I am your April MLS Monthly Program Chair. Please remember to follow WSGVR social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also watch all our pre-recorded videos on YouTube. WSGVR now offers text message updates. Text the word WSGVAR to the number 313131. Today's agenda will be consist of our President's message given by 2020 President Mindy Ye, followed by our honorable speaker, Congresswoman Judy Chu, who is the U.S. representative for California 27th Congressional District. Now we will have our President's message delivered by Mindy Ye. Mindy, are you ready?
Yes. Good morning, WSGVR family and guests. I'm Mindy Ye, your 2020 President. Wishing you a happy Cinco de Mayo next Tuesday, May 5th. Hope to see all of you soon. In the meantime, first responders, you and your families are in my thoughts and prayers as we all strive to positive for the future. Thank you for attending our virtual MLS breakfast meeting and for your continued support as a member of West San Gabriel Valley Realtors. I would also like to thank our guest today, Honorable U.S. Congresswoman Judy Chu. CRMLS and the Clear Corporation Policy will go into effect tomorrow, May 1st. 3 things I'd like to share with you. First, what is the definition of a clear corporation policy? The Clear Corporation Policy is a NAR mandated that governs the public marketing of listings and their entry into multiple listing service. Within 1 business day of marketing a property to the public, the listing broker must submit the listings to MLS for cooperation with the other MLS participants. Second, what process is CRMLS proposing to adhere to this policy? CRMLS is proposing that after the seller signs the contract, the listing broker has 2 business days from the listing contract to enter the listing into the MLS under register, coming soon, or active status. Within 1 day of marketing the property, the listing broker must ensure that the listing is in coming soon or active status. Third, what property does this apply to? Residential, vacant residential lot, and residential 1 to 4 properties. The CAR weekly update as of April 28, 2020. The market and industry. COVID-19 suppressed spring home buying seasons. While home sales actually rose on an adjusted basis in all California regions from February to March, the pandemic has suppressed the start of the spring home buying season. March typically sees a large uptick than was observed this year, causing existing home sales to fall on a seasonal adjusted basis by 11.5%. Thus far, the pandemic has had only a moderate effect on the home prices. While statewide listings and pending sales are declining, the rates of decline have not been as steep as the weeks past. Southern California and the Central Valley even experienced their first increase in the number of new listings since CAR began tracking daily data in early March, and the Bay Area has been 2 consecutive weeks of increase. National new housing tumbles by 23.3% in March, the biggest drop in nearly 40 years. In a survey from National Association of Home Builders, 90% of responses reported a slowdown in remodel inquiries and customers' willingness to proceed with a remodel. On Wednesday, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell held a virtual news conference briefing on state of economic. Powell stated Fed is not in a hurry to withdraw measures or raise rates. Preserving flows of credit is essential to economy moving forward. To that end, Feds are purchasing bonds and treasuries to improve market conditions. Supporting businesses and households will prevent long-run damage. The economy and your financials. On Tuesday, April 28, the California Employment Development Division, EDD, began accepting applications for pandemic unemployment assistance, PUA. Independent contractors will be able to file a claim for PUA at UI Online, where you will be able to self-certify your income from 2019 calendar year. While there are 4 categories of eligibility for agents who worked adhesively impacted by COVID-19, it will still be necessary to meet the criteria established by state of California. CAR is hosting several webinars this week on PUA application process. One will be held at 11 to 12 today, Pacific Standard Time. I hope you continue participating the social distance, stay home, stay strong, and stay connected. Thank you to the WSGVR MLS Breakfast Technology Committee and staff for your commitment and hard work. Please join us next Thursday, May 7 at 9 a.m. Our guest speaker will be Gov Hutchinson, CAR Assistant General Counsel on legal updates. Additional information will be sent by end of this week. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Mindy. Now we will have the Honorable Congresswoman Judy Chu given her presentation on the COVID-19 update. Here's a brief introduction of her bio. Judy Chu was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in July 2009. She represents the 27th Congressional District, which includes Pasadena and Western Gabriel Valley of Southern California. Representative Chu currently serves on the Powerful House Ways and Means Committee, which has jurisdiction over legislation pertaining to taxes, revenues, Social Security, and Medicare. In that committee, Representative Chu is a member of the subcommittees on health, giving her oversight over the healthcare reform and the crucial safety net programs, worker and family support and oversight. Now we will have Representative Chu giving her representation on the updates regarding the COVID-19. Representative Chu, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to participate in today's virtual breakfast meeting. You know, I was thinking back. I have been a supporter of the Western Gabriel Valley Realtors for over 30 years. It started when I was elected to the Monterey Park City Council, and I started attending your events. So I know what great work you do. And I know that the work that you do is so important to our local economy. And I'm always so happy to be joining with you. Well, these are unprecedented times. In order to contain this virus, we've been forced to put our entire economy on hold, and it's affecting all of us. Unemployment is near Great Depression levels. Many businesses are closing and others have been ordered to keep their doors closed in order to comply with social distancing and stop the spread of COVID-19. And families are forced to make difficult choices about paying their bills or buying food. And that is a particular problem with real estate, since unemployed workers will have a harder time paying their mortgages, risking foreclosure at a time when staying in their homes is more important than ever. And that's why we in Congress have been acting quickly to try to mitigate the harm to our entire economy. Ultimately, the goal is to get everybody back to work, but we cannot do that until we've successfully contained the virus, which is why Congress has so far passed 4 emergency bills aimed at resolving this public health crisis and stabilizing our economy. Our first priority with our first bill was to increase support for the medical necessities and our research entities, and to provide immediate relief for the businesses already impacted. So on March 7th, we passed our first bill, the Coronavirus Preparedness Act. And the bill included funding for our community health providers and state and local health departments so that they could help track the spread of the virus in the communities. But that was just a start. On March 14th, we passed our second bill, the Families First Act, which provided paid leave for eligible workers so that workers didn't have to choose between going to work sick or losing their job. But as the economic pain from the quarantines became clear, Congress went even further. On March 27th, we passed our third bill, the CARES Act, or Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. Well, it's easier to remember, CARES. This $2 trillion relief package was the largest stimulus bill passed by Congress in history. Not only did it include $200 billion for hospitals, health systems, and health research, it helped stop the pain of workers who could not work anymore through no fault of their own. This was through extending unemployment insurance and providing an additional $600 each week per recipient for up to 4 months, and also providing direct payments. There was the cash rebate direct payment of $1,200 to individuals and an extra $500 per child. This particular cash rebate went right into people's accounts to spend on essentials like rent or groceries. But as stay-at-home orders continue to be extended all over the country, including in LA County, we all know that one check is not going to be enough. When we are asking Americans to help us fight the virus by sacrificing work to stay at home, we have to make sure that everybody can actually stay in their homes. And that's why we are already working on what we call CARES 2, our second bill, which we think we might be passing as soon as next week. Well, actually, the week following next week, because we are preparing it right now. And so when CARES passed, we also included protections for homeowners and renters alike. Homeowners with mortgages from the Federal Housing Administration, the Department of Veterans Affairs, or other federal agencies can request a no questions asked forbearance on mortgage payments for up to 12 months with no fees, penalties, or extra interest. The CARES Act also included a 60-day moratorium on foreclosures and evictions for those same homeowners. It also provided protection for owners of multifamily rental properties with federally backed loans. They are eligible to receive 90-day forbearance on those loans. But in exchange, those owners may not evict or charge late fees or other penalties to tenants for the non-payment of rent. Owners of federally subsidized properties or properties with a federally backed mortgage loan may not evict or charge penalties or fees to a tenant who cannot pay rent for 120 days. Everyone is being asked to make sacrifices right now but one of those sacrifices should not be the roof over your head. So we are doing what we can to help people stay in their homes and to help protect both homeowners and renters from this massive economic shock. Still, there's much more that has to be done for homeowners and would-be homeowners during this crisis. First, for those homeowners that took advantage of the mortgage forbearances, we have to ensure the repayment terms are financially feasible on the other side of this crisis. When that amount is due, we need to make sure that people can afford to pay it in a manner that is affordable. Secondly, while about 70% of mortgages in this country are protected by the provisions of the CARES Act, this still leaves 30% of homeowners with private mortgages without those protections. So allowing nearly a third of those homeowners to face foreclosure would be devastating. So we need to explore access to similar options with reasonable terms for those who need it. Third, we learned from the mortgage meltdown in 2008 that a tightened mortgage market can shut out even credit-worthy home buyers. So we will need to provide the security necessary so that people planning to buy a home before this crisis will still be able to when it passes. Now, Congress has heard from a broad coalition of mortgage lenders and housing advocates that there is not enough being done to address this crisis, and particularly this last issue. For example, the mortgage servicing companies that collect mortgage payments on behalf of lenders are still paying the lenders, despite the fact that homeowners are potentially no longer paying their mortgages during this period. But last week, the Federal Housing Finance Agency announced that the mortgage servicing companies will only have to make these regular payments to lenders for 4 months. So what will happen when those 4 months are up? Then mortgage payers will have to continue to pay. So these payments have the potential to disrupt the system and place enormous financial strains on mortgage servicing companies, which then may have the unintended consequences of restricting lending to only home buyers with the best credit scores and who had steady gainful employment throughout this pandemic, shutting out self-employed individuals or small business owners who suffered job losses or disruption through no fault of their own. While the CARES Act rightfully focused foremost on protecting the roof over people's head as an immediate response to this pandemic, Congress has to look towards the next steps. And I believe we will need to ensure that the ability to buy a home remains in place as we recover. Now, let me say that protection from foreclosure or loans to homeowners is only part of the solution. I know how many of you have your own offices, your own small office with a certain number of employees. And that is why it was so important for us to have the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, to help protect small businesses. This program was created by Congress 1 month ago through the CARES Act. The purpose was to help employers keep paying their workers without shutting down. And that initial bill was $350 billion. Actually, as you know, the $350 billion was already dispensed. It gave 1.66 million businesses already these loans. In fact, the important part of it was that these were forgivable loans. If you retained 75% of your employees for 8 weeks, then it is a forgivable loan. When Congress was crafting this very important program, it was a top priority for me that self-employed sole proprietors and independent contractors, like so many of you realtors, were made eligible. And so we were successful, including that, whereas otherwise it might not have been. So that's good. But the implementation of the PPP has been far from perfect. And I am committed to addressing those shortfalls to deliver assistance where it was needed. The first shortfall was that the biggest banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, started their loan process by only allowing their preferred customers to be able to apply. And as a result, the truly small businesses were shut out. I got calls from so many small businesses who said that they had accounts with these particular banks for decades and yet were turned away. So that was not right. One thing we had to do was to increase funding for PPP, but I was not going to vote for this increased funding unless there was a set aside for the truly small businesses. And so we included a $60 billion set aside for the smaller community lenders, such as the community banks, the smaller credit unions, the community development financial institutions, and the micro lenders. These small lenders were more likely to serve businesses owned by minorities, women, and veterans. And in fact, these businesses were often the ones that were turned away by the big banks like Bank of America and Wells Fargo. So the program, this second batch of PPP loans just started on Monday, and we are looking very closely to make sure that our smallest of businesses are truly being served. Well, last, I want to assure you that including additional funding for state and local governments is at the very top of Democrats' list as we look forward to the fourth COVID-19 package, or CARES 2. We know that these budget shortfalls are as a result of lost revenue from things such as sales tax that have dropped dramatically as we follow stay-at-home orders to combat this virus. We know that you realtors need to have cities where all the services are taken care of: police, fire, garbage pickup, maintenance of the streets. And that's why making sure that our local governments have the money that they need is so important. So that's another thing that I am focused on for CARES 2, to do everything to help states and cities fill those budget gaps so they don't have to make the difficult choice between cutting their own workforce or services or raising state or local taxes anymore. And also, this is why I am an original co-sponsor of the Coronavirus Community Relief Act, which would address something that was lacking in the last bill. It would eliminate the 500,000 population threshold in the CARES 1 Act, and allow cities that have populations below 500,000 to apply for direct relief, which is, of course, all the cities in the San Gabriel Valley. So thank you again for everything that you're doing and for inviting me onto this very important virtual meeting. I've only touched on some of what Congress is doing to support you and our economy in this moment, and I look forward to hearing your questions.
Yes, we do, Your Honorable Representative Chu, we do have a few questions here. First one is, the government stopped home eviction, so we have tenants not paying rent. So this has effect of landlord cannot pay mortgage. do forbearance and lender lose out, eventually foreclosure. When government passes these care protections, government should give money to tenants to pay rent. Having a CARE Act, but government do not pay for the non-payment, forbearance, etc., will have extremely negative effect on the whole economy circle. Someone is paying for this. Government needs to give funds with care to tenant to pay for rent. So we won't have this trickle-down effect. I guess she's asking, what do you think of this?
Well, one thing, whether you are a homeowner that is renting out your home or a multifamily residential owner, you still have forbearance. So that forbearance is for, it is for 12 months for a homeowner, and it is 90 days for a multifamily residential property. So at least you have some relief there. On paying rent, that is something that we can entertain in our CARES 2 package. I do have to say that just on April 14th, the Board of Supervisors did vote unanimously to establish, this is for LA County, an emergency rental assistance program with community development block grant funds. And this would provide rent subsidies for up to $1,000 per month for up to 3 months for families who've recently lost jobs. So on the county level, there is rental payment relief. But on the federal level, this is something that would have to be taken up in the next bill.
Thank you. Here's another question regarding PPP. Are the real estate agents able to apply? Do they qualify for this loan if they work for a broker?
Well, yes, real estate agents are able to apply. If you are your own business, then you are able to apply for PPP. Even if you are your own self-employed contractor. Basically the owner of the business apply for PPP. Now, if you're working for a broker, I think the question is who owns the business. Basically, it's the owner of the business that would have to apply. But it doesn't matter if it's one person in the business or up to 499, because this program is for businesses that are under 500 employees, but they can all apply for PPP. And let me also say, of course, I didn't mention anything about EIDL. EIDL is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, an emergency grant program. One of the first things that we did with our first bill, and then we put more money into it in this last bill, was to have coronavirus declared a disaster. And so those who are impacted by COVID could apply for an economic injury disaster loan, EIDL. And that is for a loan of up to $2 million with principal and interest deferment for up to 4 years. And it's a low interest loan that can be applied towards expenses for really pretty much any expenses that would not have occurred had coronavirus not occurred. Also there's the grant program, the operative term being grant. In other words, you don't have to pay it back. And that's a value of up to $10,000 per applicant. And it's an emergency grant that does not have to be repaid. So that's another source of funds.
Thank you. Here's another one. Someone asked me to read HR 6515 and tell Judy to vote no.
Okay, there are a lot of bills out there. So I will look it up. How about that?
Okay,
But
HR
I'm not sure which
651.
one. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Here's another question. So, what assistance is being done for commercial tenants and landlords?
Well, again, if you are an owner of a property, you're paying a mortgage, then there is the forbearance. So that is at least some immediate relief. I think what we have to do in CARES 2 is to figure out at the end of that forbearance period, how are people going to be able to pay what is owed at that particular time? I know that is the conundrum. I know that is because there have to be reasonable ways to pay that amount back, especially since we don't see the economy snapping back anytime soon this year. So, so that is something that is on the agenda for CARES 2, and I suspect that we will have more legislation on this issue in the future.
I see. Thank you. Does PPP conflict with POA for self-employed employed realtor?
POA?
Does PPP conflict with POA for self-employed employed realtors?
I'm not sure what POA is. I know what PPP is, obviously.
POA. Bear with my pronunciation. I'm sorry. POA. Pandemic employment assistance.
Oh, you're talking about the unemployment insurance.
Yes. My bad.
Oh, okay. The pandemic unemployment insurance. We usually don't refer to it in those terms. But let me just say, of course, you need to be the owner in order to apply for PPP. So that is one thing. But the good thing is you could be an owner one, with you being the main employee. Now, the question is, though, about whether you could apply for unemployment. Actually, to apply for unemployment, you do need to be the employee of that business. So that unemployment insurance is for those who are employed by the business owner. What we did, knowing that this was going to take, that this pandemic is going to be there for a while, is to expand unemployment for another 13 weeks. So that's a total of 39 weeks. We also gave $600 on top of that for the length of the unemployment. And also, we extended those who could qualify for this unemployment. For instance, one big deal was giving it to the freelancers, the gig workers, those who don't have a traditional W-2 form. So they are able to apply and get some unemployment relief as well. So, so unemployment has been greatly expanded, and we are hoping that people will be able to get through. I know that in California, they have had a hard time getting through through the phone lines. We were just on a conference call with Governor Newsom yesterday, and they are trying to fix that.
Thank you. Here's another one. If you got approved for PPP loan, you cannot lay off any of your employee?
Okay, so here's something I want to clarify. If you got a PPP loan, then very good, because there are true benefits to it. For instance, the interest rate is only 1%. But if you eventually want that loan to be forgiven, in other words, to be a grant, then the requirement is that for 8 weeks, you keep 75% of your employees on the payroll. But let's just say you can only keep 50% of them on the payroll. Then your forgivable loan will only be for 50%. You would have to pay back the other part of the loan, though the interest rate is very low at 1%. So you do have your option. You could make it a straight loan, or you could eventually turn it into a grant, a forgivable loan.
Makes sense. We got a lot of questions here. Here's another one. Do they have enough federal funds to cover the stimulus packages for those that have not received them yet?
Okay, so everybody, well, okay, depends on which program you're talking about. On the $1,200 cash rebate and $500 per child or dependent, yes, the money is there. Everybody should have gotten it. Those, and remember this cash rebate, who was it for? You got the full $1,200 plus $500 per dependent. If you earn $75,000 or under. And then you got a portion of it if you earned under 99,000. But if you earn over 99,000, you didn't get any of the cash rebate. So that was for people who earn 99,000 or under. Was there enough money for that? There is, and the reason I am saying this is because the first batch of those cash rebates went out right away. It was for those who had a direct deposit. So $60 million worth went out right away. Now the rest of that is being mailed out, 5 million at a time. So not everybody has gotten that. But I want to reassure everybody that they will get it because the money is there. Now my concern though has to do with PPP, because PPP is very, very popular and many people have applied. And I am so afraid that those who are the truly small businesses who have not gotten these type of loans before still may have not have applied. And then they'd be behind all the people that have already applied. So I am very concerned about that. And I expect that we will have to expand it once again.
I see. Someone is asking, when will CARES 2 come out?
So we are working on it right now, and there'll be a whole discussion of it this coming week. I believe all of next week. And then I'm expecting that it will be in the week following.
The week following.
The week following next week, yeah.
I see. Should Congress work for free for 6 months and give that money to tenants for food and rent?
Well, that is an idea.
I see. We have so many questions here. What about property tax? If the tenant is not able to pay rent, is there any benefit for property's owner to lower their property tax?
But by which mechanism?
Saying if tenant is not able to pay rent, is it possible for homeowners to for the government to lower the property tax for homeowners?
Well, that's an interesting question, though. I do have to say that is on the local level. So this would be one of those LA County kinds of issues.
Okay. Regarding POA, if you are still trying to get clients, can you still qualify for POA?
Okay, so you're talking about the unemployment insurance, right?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So the question is whether you, if you're are
You're
trying
still
to get
trying to get
clients.
clients.
I
Can you
see.
please
That
clarify
is an
further?
interesting question. You're still trying to get clients, so then therefore, are you really unemployed?
Yes.
I'm not sure about that one. I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
Yeah. Though, I'm just talking off the top of my head, but I'm thinking, if you are unemployed, first of all, the definition of unemployed is that you're seeking work, right? In fact, some people aren't even being counted in the unemployment rolls because they aren't seeking work because there is no work out there. So if you are seeking clients, isn't that kind of like you're still seeking work, which is the very definition of unemployment?
Mm-hmm.
So it seems to me that you could apply for unemployment. I'm just talking off the top of my head, though.
Okay. I'm looking at questions. There's a long question here.
Okay, I see a question. Well, since I'm seeing the questions too.
Okay.
Like for instance, from Nanette Ong, she's saying that the lenders, banks are saying they can't accept applications for a PPP until they work through the backlog, and how then how can others then apply if they're only taking their preferred clients? Well, let me say something. We are so concerned about this that's why we put the $60 billion set aside for just the community banks, the credit unions, and the CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions, which are, by the way, they're called mission-based lenders. CDFIs have as their mission that they must serve the vulnerable and high need type of clients, such as communities of color, women, veterans, and so forth. Okay, so $60 billion is set aside there. But also, we are very, very concerned about all those who've been in the backlog and will just using the backlog eat up all the money. And so that's why I heard just yesterday that Secretary Mnuchin has put forth this good edict, which is that from 1 o'clock to 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time every day, they are only going to allow loans processed for those financial institutions with under $1 million of assets. So they're going to set aside time for those loans, basically put a hold on the big, gigantic banks like Wells Fargo and Bank of America so that they can't process further ones, so that they can give the small community lenders a chance. So I think that could help. I was very encouraged when I heard that.
I see. There's a good question from Juliana too. She's asking, how did those big businesses get their hands on that PPP money from the first huge stimulus package so quickly, while we small businesses are still struggling to apply and get approval in this second act? What is the government doing about overseeing that this does not happen again?
Yeah, it cannot happen again. I was really angry when I heard about it. And in fact, Catherine Torres says, why are big companies like the Lakers and big hotels getting PPP loans? Okay, should they be asked to give it back? Yes. The answer is yes. And what did they do? They found the loopholes. And that is, the max loan was supposed to be $10 million. But like Ruth Chris got their different franchises to apply, and altogether it was $20 million. And others like Alexander's Steakhouse and Potbelly Sandwiches, Shake Shack, they got $10 million by having these multiple franchises apply. So anyway, Shake Shack ultimately got shamed into giving it back. And why? Because they obviously have other sources of funds. By the way, these are all publicly traded companies. They clearly have other sources of funds. That's what made me so angry. So anyway, in fact, just yesterday it was that we were on the line with Secretary of the Treasury Mnuchin, and he said that they are going to each of those companies that got $2 million or more, and they are saying to them that they have to prove that they actually had a need for the funds. And if they cannot prove that they had the need for the funds, then they are asking them to give it back, and that they will be subject to criminal liability if they don't do that.
Okay. Do we have more questions here for Representative Chu? We did have a lot of questions, and you all answered that. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Mel has the last one. How is it deceased people receiving stimulus checks and those that did receive it, they have nothing set up to return them?
Yes. Well, that is a good question. I do have to say this came about because of the desire to get the money out to people as soon as possible. We knew that because of the immediate restrictions on and the shutdowns on people and them staying at home, that there'd be a financial crisis, especially for those in the lower income areas. And so that's why there was this program to get $1,200 out per person with $500 per dependent. But how do you get it out right away? Should people apply and then you know that they are truly there and alive? Well, you know, we didn't have any time. So that's why the conclusion was to get it out to those who filed a 2019 or 2018 return. Those who were deceased were those who probably passed away within the last year and still had that return alive. So, so yeah, there's no means by which to return. I do have to say though that it's a relatively small number of people who got those funds, and you know, the important thing is that this provided relief for people who really need it.
Mm-hmm. Is it a requirement that a PUA applicant filed a Schedule C in case of her tax 2018 or 2019 return?
That I'm not sure, so I will have to look into that one.
Okay, will EIDL, excuse me, open up again?
Okay, so this is very important. This is that program I was talking about, the economic economic injury disaster loan program and the emergency grant program. So that's all one and the same. I told you that you can get $10,000 straight out and not have to pay it back. And then there's the loan that you can get of up to $2 million. I do have to say that already we had run out of the money, and that's why in this last CARES bill, we added $50 billion to the EIDL, and then we added $10 billion to the grant program. So it is indeed a very needed program and a very impacted program. My guess is that we probably will have to increase the amounts in there.
I see. Here's since we have so many here, I'm just gonna pick the last one. Should the companies that are not supposed to receive PPP assistance be denied loan forgiveness?
Well, remember that those who were not supposed to receive it are supposed to return it. And they will be audited, and there could be even criminal liability. So that's pretty strict. And already some have been returning it because the message has been very clear that that is not acceptable. So yeah, they definitely shouldn't get loan forgiveness because they shouldn't have gotten it in the first place.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to thank you, Juliana, too, because I just saw your comment that you saying that you're really worried about racial backlash against Asian Americans that has been happening around the nation. Please let everyone know not to call it the China or Wuhan virus. Thank you, Juliana, for that comment, because we are very, very worried about that. In fact, there have been 1,600 hate crimes or incidents against Asian Americans around this nation, including a woman who was assaulted on a subway for wearing a face mask, a woman who was assaulted so that she had to have stitches on a bus because she wasn't wearing a face mask, a woman who took out her garbage. She was just checking out her garbage. She was an Asian American, and then somebody threw acid on her and it made chemical burns on her faces and arms. A family of 3 at the Sam's Club in Texas that was stabbed because a man wanted to kill Asian Americans, and one of those was a 2-year-old child. So there are very, very concerning things happening around this nation, and we need to make sure that we are unified, that we help each other. This is a time to help each other and not to scapegoat each other. And that's why it is important not to call it the China or Wuhan virus, because that is only a source of more shaming. Let's work together. Let's make sure that we can, in fact, support each other and try to get as healthy and safe as possible. Anyway, the official name is COVID-19. The WHO named it that. In fact, the policy of the WHO is to not name it after a region or geographical region so that there is not a stigma. So the official name, let's all use the official name, COVID-19 or coronavirus.
Yes, we should. Thank you so very much, Congresswoman Chu, for an informative presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for joining our webinar today. We hope to see you again next week. Next week will be Gov Hutchinson's legal updates, and the May MLS breakfast program chair will be Pauline Lam. We hope to see you next week at the same time. Now this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.